I am back. It is Gigi. What is up, guys? I was thinking about you. I just want to talk a little bit about the COVID-19, the coronavirus, which is an acute respiratory type of illness, or it causes it actually. I think I'll put a link in so you guys who want to understand this, how this virus works. You may do that, and if not, that's fine too. But it's kind of good to know what happens. So maybe I'll just tell you like really quickly. First of all, this virus is just disgusting. Every time I see it, it makes me want to throw up. Like literally, like it's got those sticker things out, like it's just like ew. And so basically, it gets into your body by you obviously touching your face, as you probably all know this, and then it travels down into the lower portion of the lungs, where it begins to attack this small areoli. I forget. It's not areoli. It's something like that. Anyway, so that's like a part of the lung that actually helps to exchange oxygen for CO2. So basically what it does is it uses those nasty sucker things it has on it, which I want to shave off with a freaking hedge cutter. So that's like my weird thing I have with this freaking cell. Every time I see it, I just want to shave it off with freaking hedge cutter. So it takes those receptor things and it hooks into one of the receptors of your cell, and then it begins to invade the cell. Obviously, it starts to take over the cell. The body goes into a reaction. There's fluid that starts to come forth as a result of the body trying to defend itself, and that's when the severe, things of pneumonia start to build up. So as this thing is like in your cell, it's beginning to sort of take away proteins and things like that. Actually, you know what, take this as a very, very rough explanation here. Okay, take it as a rough explanation. Don't even take it as 100% fact. Just take it as a rough explanation. So continue. My understanding is that begins to start taking portions of your cell and starts to begin to replicate all of the materials that it needs in order to replicate itself, and that's what it keeps doing. So it keeps invading the cells, replicating itself, invading, replicating. So the real important thing here, obviously, the best line of defense is not to get it in the first freaking place. So obviously, as they said, wash your hands, all of these things, and don't expose yourself to places where people are really going to be. Obviously, if you can. Staying in, obviously, is the best thing, once again. Because now, we don't have testing, so we don't know who has this disease. And we've got over 100,000 people who are afflicted with it known. We don't know whether or not what's unknown about it. So this thing is actually, it does travel in the air. You can breathe it in if it is, it's riding on somebody's, this is nasty. I'm about to get really nasty right now. Either on the moisture from somebody's sneeze, somebody's cough, like those nanoparticles of water droplets, this virus will hang out and ride on, and you could inhale that. So this is why it's really important not to be outside right now. So there's that. The other thing is this: everybody needs to go to the supermarket. We have people in our workforce. I'm only going to speak for the United States right now, in our very unique system of caring government that we have. Where we don't have medical universal health care. So medical health care is a privilege here. It's not a human right. And so it's even more important for us as Americans to really make sure that we are quarantining no matter how much. Like, please stop going to the pool. Please stop, running around on bikes together and still gathering socially pleased, And yesterday was a man in church in Tampa, Florida, who still was calling his congregation to the church, over 100 people, and they finally arrested his ass. Excuse me. He was able to get out on bail, but I mean, he's sitting there saying there's nothing more important than God. No one is disputing that, but um, you can live stream a church service, and he failed to do that even while having the equipment and the ability to do so. So he failed to do that. So I don't feel sorry for him, but this could be 100 people or so over a couple of days who have been infected, who are now out into the population infecting other people. As you can obviously tell, this is a very highly contagious virus, highly contagious. So again, it's important that we stay in, because there are people in here, especially in the United States, who have to go to work, who don't have the option to stay home. And so we need not to infect those people. There are people such as FedEx workers, UPS workers, the general mail, who are going from door to door still with no kind of respiratory protection on, no mask. Obviously, nothing that they even have made or sewn at home, nothing that the company has arranged to have sewn for them. None of that I've seen, none of that I've personally seen. So, I mean, if it's existing somewhere else, okay, but the way the numbers are bumping up in the United States, I don't really think so. So we have that. We have the people at the grocery store who are being exposed, depending on where you live, from 30 to 200 people per hour. So no, I'm not reading this from somewhere else. These are my own thoughts. But we have to really pull together and commit to staying in, because those people could become infected and then they're infecting everyone else. So I would say when you're going to the grocery store, in addition to that consideration, make sure that I personally would say to put on a pair of gloves, because people are picking up items, they're looking at the ingredients, or they're picking up a piece of fruit, deciding they don't like it and put it in it back or whatever. The coronavirus is also traveling on those surfaces. Apparently, there are a few surfaces that this virus can stay on, such as cloth, these kind of surfaces, wood, cardboard, for several hours to a day or two. So it's best to really make sure when you're going into these common places, where safety or exposure to this virus or elements of it could happen, that you are actually disinfecting your groceries, the packages actually, and really washing your hands before you come in, wiping down your doorknob. Is it that serious? Yes, I would say it's that serious. Given people are dying, I would say it's that serious. We are not wearing masks here, but everybody in Asia, like the Asian countries, Japan, North Korea, they know better to wear a mask. We're being told that masks aren't working. Sure, it's a certain type of mask, but why do we also turn on the TV and endlessly see medical professionals wearing the masks that we are told don't work? I get it that you don't want us to overbuy the mask and take them away from the medical professionals, but at least give us the option to make ours at home. And by the way, there are plenty of videos to make yours at home as well. If you are wearing a mask, at some extent, your water droplets, the moisture from your mouth and nose and all that stuff is actually somewhat contained. It's somewhat contained. Don't tell me that a mask doesn't contain don't tell me that a mask doesn't contain something, because it does. you know Otherwise, the medical professionals wouldn't be wearing the same mask Anyway, so there's that. You know, and I mean, personally, I thought I was like, look, in the beginning when this started really taking off, and I was just like, Trump just told everybody just to wear a mask. I was saying at the time, wear a mask because I didn't realize it. Obviously, we would deplete the mask from the medical professionals. So I was just saying, like, if we all just walked around and wore a mask for 2 weeks, this damn thing would just die off, you know? And clearly, here we are, some weeks later, having to sit in because certain people are still going outside. I think more people are actually taking it seriously now. I've noticed a personal difference. I saw all last week up to yesterday, people constantly parading up and down the street, walking in groups, acting like because it's a nice day, it's just a fine Sunday, I'm gonna be outside, multiple people. And then I noticed yesterday when the numbers hit 100,000 in the United States, I hardly saw anybody, as opposed to seeing about um, 4 people every 15 minutes, which I know that's probably considered not a lot. Now I was just seeing one person every like 4 hours, you know. And so I was like, I really noticed yesterday and it's today, a little more people out today than were yesterday, but I just noticed and I'm like, okay, people are finally beginning to get it. But yes, obviously masks to some degree are going to help to some degree, in my opinion. You can check with your doctor, fine. I mean, but the data tells me, based on what I said, otherwise. Um, so there's that. There's this real interest collectively for us to really stay in so that when we do go out again, we are not infecting the people at the grocery store. Like, that is just so important. It's important not only for our safety overall, but it's important for these people. Obviously, if they have to go back to their family, they have to go back to their children, and they can't quarantine from them. So if one person is getting it, another one is. Furthermore, obviously there aren't enough ventilators. Everybody who's been watching the news knows that there aren't enough ventilators. They're Nobody's making them fast enough. It's been weeks. They've been promised, and they just haven't come through fast enough. Even though, like, finally, the president has put the Defense Production Act into effect, but he hasn't apparently, at least as of yesterday, he hadn't signed off on the final execution of it in order for it to be executed out in a certain way. So it's still kind of held up in a certain way, even though GM and another company is actually focusing on making some ventilators. Um, Even still, I think they're only going to be able to make like 10,000 a month, is what I remember understanding. So, I mean, the other interest of you staying inside and taking care of yourself is that the leadership clearly can't provide the type of expedience that you need, um, the type of expedience not only in solutions for medical equipment for the people in the front lines of this, for common sense. Because first of all, I mean, your hands on masks, get them in the country. You've been saying for like, it feels like a good 3 weeks now. We've got 3M printing out masks, and they make 35 million a month. This is what Mike Pence said: 35 million masks a month. You should be distributing those to the grocery stores, clerks. Those people need to be protected first and foremost. The FedEx people, they need not to be walking into buildings like I've seen them without any protective gear on, going from building to building. I mean, it's ridiculous, you know? And the mail people, when they go to unlock your freaking mailbox, put all the stuff in, they need to have gloves, which I personally observe. Not only are people handling the mail without gloves on, but they're also opening your mailboxes with their key and with their bare hands as well. So, I mean, there's just a lot that's going on here that needs to be thought about. So, your government, based on the data, is not coming up with the issues, with the solutions fast enough. The disease is spreading by 20,000 to 30,000 every day. So staying in is super important if you're seriously interested in preserving, obviously, your own life and other lives. If you're that serious about it, staying in is a real deal. Because once people start getting sick at the grocery store, it is going to be like the clerks. It is an absolute nightmare, and the hospitals are not going to be able to keep up. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but literally, I have seen a few nurses at their wits' end in like a tidal wave of COVID-19 people they've been dealing with all day, completely, utterly, and totally overwhelmed on, anything from an 8 hour to a 13 or 14-hour shift and probably higher. COVID-19 patients only, all day. People dying, people not having enough ventilators. And then in one situation, one woman said, my patient took the last ventilator. Like, God forbid anybody else come in here with something. So people can't afford to be making people sick by hanging outside. Like, this is not a big deal. Like, those people get sick in the grocery store. The FedEx people get sick. They are passing this disease like super spreader. Okay. And it is just going to be mayhem, multiple deaths. It's not going to be pretty. And we need to get real about it. The best way to really exercise power in this situation, we have the power and we don't have to give this virus anything to feed off of. So stay inside. Please stay inside. And hopefully, this government of ours in the United States will hurry up and get people the financial funding that they really need and not take another 3 weeks to get it to them. That's it. All right, guys. So, yeah, I mean, with the virus here, it's everything that I just said. It's about you really honoring your personal power, exercising your personal power, not going into fear, knowing that you have the upper hand in this situation. If we all work together, we have the upper hand in this situation. Staying inside, allowing this thing to fizzle out, die out, not giving it anything to feed off of, not giving any of its little suckers anything to suck on. Stupid fucking virus with all those things sticking out of it. Like, every time I think of that, it's like, I just want to just take a hammer and slam it down on that thing. This is also, getting back to real stuff though, this is also about self-love and love, as it is put here. We're realizing with this disease exactly how fragile our systems are and how interdependent we are, on the environment, of course, but on ourselves as well. Like, how much we really are dependent upon these systems. We have rich people, so quote unquote, who are losing massive amounts of money. Although I think things have kind of sort of stabilized a little bit with the stock market. But I mean, we have people who have lost probably millions of dollars in the last couple of weeks with the stock market plunging the way it did. So this conversation in the United States, this constant thing with the rich versus the poor, as far as the struggle with taxes, who's going to pay more, this thing with socialism versus capitalism versus democratic socialism versus everything, and then we have the other side where people are getting paid poverty wages, like $11 an hour. People are working 80 hours a week on 2 different jobs. They're bringing home only $800. That's not enough money. $1,200 a month. That's not enough money to support rent. And I mean, you can't have children on that. That definitely guarantees that either you're going to be you're going to be living off your relatives, um, or going into like food stamps or something like that, because I mean, it's just not sustainable. Like, if you have to go buy supplies for the house and things like that, you turn around, you're in $200, $150 just on that alone. Like, that's not even food. So gas as well, you know, everything, your expenses, so there's a lot here about really staying in your power, also getting creative. This is very interesting because the universe is also calling for people to get into their personal creativity as well. This is like they're giving you this time off for people who are challenged with believing that people universally need access to healthcare, and that we can do it with all of our tax paying together. It does not have to be just stretched on the rich. It can go across the board very well. Um, but they are giving, while they're working with those elements, with people who are challenged in that way, or challenged with sort of like what I would call maybe a fair distribution. This is not welfare distribution, this is fair distribution. This is for people who are working their ass off, but they're only making $11 an hour, working 80 to 100 hours a week, and still are behind, are still in the red. So while these things are being worked on for people to see, hey, you know what, I actually need my workers. You know what, my business, it doesn't take much for my business to fail. you know. Now I don't have money for food, you know. Imagine how my people do this every week. Get a paycheck, damn thing's gone the very next day. Just shopping for cleaning supplies. So there's that. There's um there's that side, and then there's a side for you, like the time they're giving you to really find out and really delve into what you love, all of these hours and this time off. And yeah, this is about love. This is about not only speaking up, which it feels like the earth is actually doing, and the universal forces, because there's such an imbalance here that it's stepped in, somehow. It stepped in somehow, and this virus is actually taking on the space to create these realizations or whatever. So there is bringing up love and self-love. you know Interesting. This goes into a whole thing about agricultural society. It goes into a whole thing about distribution of power, just these cards here. um, Respecting people, everyone from the people who pick the fruits that you finally get to your table, down to the truck drivers, down to everyone really understanding that people do work and they need at least to have healthcare that isn't $35,000, $40,000, or a tooth comes out and then they can't even get a replacement because there's so much money, things like that. Just really, really looking at those things. Mm. Systems are obviously failing as well, and it's happening on a world platform. So there's that. There's also the way with which that we are treating the earth as well. The earth is really whoosh. This is what this is. The earth is like coming forward of the message with its own self love. Like, I need to take care of myself. Like, um, I can't. It's almost like a earth will not allow itself to be put out of balance. So the fact that we're also, which reminds me, the fact that we're also in our homes as well has cut down pollution by substantial amounts actually around the world. Um, and certain wildlife is coming back. I'm sure you guys have seen those videos as well, where certain dolphins are coming in and different things like that, where they weren't before. But there's that, and I guess the earth is really, I hate to say it, like expressing levels of distress within itself and needing to purge. So this is kind of like a purging. This one is a little deep over here. I don't even know if I should talk about this one, but the earth kind of holding us here, let's say, is a certain level of a contract. And if this honestly can't be honored where the earth is in balance while we're cohabitating on it, um, the fact of the matter is the earth will take itself first. That's it. Yeah, I think that we can really expect like some storms, some really crazy weather coming forward. Um, there's something else. I don't think it's like an earthquake, but I think it's like, like huge hurricane or something. It's something massive and crazy. I hate to say it. I don't mean to scare people, but this is a way of the earth offering up some understanding that where we need to kind of step back for real. We're gonna have a good leader, but it's definitely not the current president of the United States. Um, he might not even be American, but we're gonna have somebody um, who steps up. Hmm, this is weird. It's kind of reeking of Bernie Sanders. It's hilarious because, and I'm not putting in a political thing here, but I mean really, um, because of the way the cards are combined here, like somebody who people are feeling like they will, their plans are not that great because they feel it will cost some money or something like that, but the plans are actually grassroots. The systems are actually grassroots, and yeah, it's like this person isn't getting any credit. And frankly, like whether you like Bernie's policy or not, we've turned into a completely socialist government here in the U.S. So I mean, we are right now paying people to stay home. We're not doing that. I mean, Congress just passed it, but it's basically they've enacted some socialist policies to come through. So we're having people stay at home. We've mandated that. We are trying to give money for people to stay home. Um, we're taking over almost, the government's taking over almost every operation over. It's also ordering factories to begin to work, although that hasn't truly really happened in its entirety. But, this is, we are living in under a socialist government right now. So this may very well be Bernie Sanders coming forth. And I think, if not anything else, his words. I think it's going to be Joe Biden who is who's a candidate. But I mean, Bernie Sanders, if not anything, is going to be able to. I hate to say this, like have his moment. I hate to say that. I feel like Bernie Sanders kind of deserves a little bit more than that because, like him or not, like Trump or not, like Biden or not, these people are in their 70s, and you see them campaigning from city to city, doing their thing, doing these interviews, and you're like, sit back and go, like these people or not, whatever it is, These people are out here working hard. That's a lot of energy. That's a lot of energy to meet with people constantly. So, just for that, I admire them all. Like, just respect for that alone. Um, so I feel like Bernie Sanders will have like his moment where he'll kind of be able to address um the world and really kind of, I think he's going to like loosen the cap on a bottle just a little bit, let's say. I think Joe Biden will be the candidate, but I really feel like Joe Biden is going to end up being like a little bit of a disappointment, or and it's more like an and. I think he's going to end up being a little bit of a disappointment. And sidebar, why has Obama not come out and supported Biden? There's something fishy there as well. Um, and I do think about Bernie gives out a lot of advice behind the scenes and things like that. A lot of things and procedures and ways that he would have gotten things passed. Um, to make infrastructure better, especially in situations like this, where something like this happens now and people need real medical care. Things with better relationships with corporations, so that when we do need ventilators, when we do need masks made, like they get done, and I'm taking all this time to just get up off the ground. But there's something there as well, and I think unfortunately we're going to be experiencing a lot of mass losses and things like that. That could be a lot of what the disappointment actually is about, with Biden actually. And if this is Biden, then he's going to be really doing the right thing with this justice card here to bring things to a head. Actually, this is what I see. I'm not sure that he will realize everything that he needs to. So even though when he wrote that speech, it was pretty well thought out about the procedures in the U.S. and stuff like that, but there's still some realization that overall we're not getting, is that when we elect a president, we also need to be electing the senators of the same party, of the same interest, who will allow things to get past the senators and the Congress, because otherwise the president is pretty much a lame duck. He can't get anything passed except through executive orders. So he can't make any laws, doesn't really have any power, because everything that he does, just the way as Obama when he was in office, everything that he does, if it's not approved in either the House or the Senate, people decide to block him there. There are certain things he just can't get done. Can't get done. Can't pass the universal health care when people are disagreeing. Although I don't know how that happened, because Obama had Democrats. He had a majority of Democrats, so I don't know how that happened, but oh well. Yeah, I mean, there's just still a lot of corruption, but I think in some way, like, this situation gets so bad that the Supreme Court is really going to start regulating the higher courts. The Ninth Circuit, I think a Ninth Circuit is the highest one, although I want to say 11 here, but I think a Ninth Circuit is like the highest one before you get to the Supreme Court. So I mean, there may be a lot of things that they don't realize and still don't understand. There may be some kind of error with the production. Somebody's gonna have to pay for not realizing to make these ventilators fast enough. That's what I see here. There's something wrong. I don't know what. I'm not gonna go into it, but there's something wrong in this production. I'm not sure. Things were done fast, and it may have been something that somebody overlooked. So, with this ventilator production, I really hope not, but this is what I'm observing here. So, yeah. And finally, with the hangman here, I just think that, them waiting entirely too long, um, dealing with this virus here has really caused like a paralysis as well, like as far as what is this? Wait, hold on. There's gonna be an issue in the United States. Oh my God. Listen, I want to tell you guys to stay home. Please stay home. If you go out, please, I'm telling you, look up wearing a mask. They're just now kind of trickling in, going, maybe we should be wearing a mask. You know, make one at home. Go right on YouTube, look up how to make one. Make one at home. It's gonna help at least a little bit. And then there's like certain filters you could buy and stuff like that. If you do your research carefully to make a mask that's a little more protective. But the United States, I hate to say it, here is getting hit hard. They need to stop travel. They need to stop allowing people to fly on planes. Like they need to do that shit now, because that's another thing. And then they just need to reimburse or help out these airlines from going out of business and focus on that, because there's just so much spread everywhere. There's so much. I don't want anybody to panic or whatever, but just stay inside. Stay inside and let this pass. Don't be a fucking person outside picking it up in the 14th or the 13th day of somebody's 14th day of having it, and then restarting the whole thing over, spreading it everywhere. Like, stay inside, because this is really bad. It's like really, really bad. I think people in the White House are actually going to get this. This is crazy. It's really not going to be a good look for Trump. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and go into that. I would say, the best way to take power is to stay inside when you have to go out. Do gloves. You do your social distancing the best you can. Um, Look up wearing a mask. I mean, I'm wearing one. I, you know, I'm wearing one that we made and made with, a certain level of material that helps really kind of block out stuff. So you guys can like look that stuff up, and yeah, that's it. So just, staying inside is the best thing. That's the best way to take power in this situation, because there's going to be a lot of people affected that we do not know about as well. And it looks like the Midwest might be like the hotbed in a lot of ways. For those of you who are experiencing people like New Yorkers and other people fleeing, like becoming refugees from the disease and fleeing the hotbeds and coming into your area, as opposed to resenting those people, just try to help them, encourage them to stay in and quarantine for 14 days, offer to do their, grocery shopping if you feel comfortable enough to do it. If not, wrangle up some people who are. Um, Find out about delivery in your neighborhoods of groceries and encourage these people to do that. Like if people are coming in from New York into your town, people are coming in, let's say maybe Louisiana, and they're going over into Texas or something like that. I don't know. Um, excuse me. Just encourage people to stay in, obviously in a really finessed way, because, people are going to do whatever they're going to do. But, hey, welcome. I know you guys are probably going to be quarantining for the next week, given you're coming in from New York and all. So I was just wondering if you need help with me picking up anything from you for you from the grocery store. Use Cash App, let them pay you by Cash App or whatever, um, and just go from there. But we really need to band together, as opposed to resisting people who are fleeing. because it's just unrealistic to expect that if something struck in your town and suddenly 30,000, 40,000 people have this fucking virus and you don't, you feel good and you felt good, like there's no way you're going to tell me that you're going to sit there in that petri dish and stay around. You're going to move. That's what people do. And it's interesting because it brings up another conversation about refugees, about people. It's going to bring people into a newer understanding about what it means to be disrupted, and cause to have to become migratory. So this is not necessarily an argument for that, but it definitely is going to help people realize a lot of stuff. So we really need to band together because this disease, the outbreak of it over in the next 2 weeks, I hate to say, it's shit is gonna get real. I just saw it in the cards. So you know, just stay calm, stay in. Don't go visiting other people right now. Don't be the person spreading everything. Don't be the person who contracts it. You know, really just protect yourself, protect your family, because especially in the United States, again, if you get sick, and especially with the numbers that I saw in these cards, like they still haven't gotten people, these states, I don't see them really preparing for extra personnel. Um, there's also people who are in retirement who are medical doctors who want to sort of come back in and help out. I mean, they obviously don't, have to do the hardest stuff, but they can still help out. The medical personnel who are in the army as well could be a little more utilized, I understand. So, really starting to mobilize that stuff because it's gonna get real. So be prepared to just stay in and hunker down. You don't have to overbuy food, but just hunker down because it's gonna be here for a little bit of a minute, or the heaviness of it is gonna take place over the next 3 weeks. I didn't see anything going on after that. It may die out after that. It depends on us. Things are shifting and changing energetically. Like 1 minute, it's going to last for long, but then there's this real feeling that it's going to start really dying off. I don't even want to say, but it depends on when people commit to staying in and committing to not spreading the virus. You know. All right, so I'm gonna get going. I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.